Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tailgate Talk. I'm your host, David, along with my brother, Nick. Nick, say hi to the people.
Howdy.
Today, we're joined with a guest picker, Joe. Joe is our cousin's boyfriend, so we're vetting him out with his football knowledge this week. Joe, you want to say hi to the people?
Hi, happy to be here.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So let me go ahead and pull up our picks, our slate for the week. And here we go. First off, we've got Arkansas Liberty, 13.5-point favorite for Arkansas. Nick, who you got?
So this one was tough because Liberty is a nationally ranked team. But no, they're not. In the AP, they are, I think. But they're up there on the road in Arkansas. It's a tough environment. I know Arkansas hasn't had the year that they've wanted, but I do still think that the Razorbacks will pull this one out. They're at home. I just feel like that's kind of, if it was like a neutral site or for whatever reason they were in Liberty, I'd say Liberty, but I just think Arkansas, I still think that they're a good team. They just had some bad luck this year, so I do think the Razorbacks win this game.
Cover or no cover?
I'm going to go no cover. I think Liberty keeps it close.
All right. Joe, what you got?
For Liberty, Arkansas, I don't know. I think Arkansas just has the talent. I mean, Liberty's had a great year this year. Don't get me wrong. They've had a lot of talent the past 2 years. You know, someone like Malik Willis, and now the quarterback that they've had this year, I've seen a lot of highlights through social media and ESPN top 10 plays after a college football Saturday. But like Nick said, I'll take Arkansas. The home field advantage definitely is going to help. And I'll take them to cover. I think they really show out in this game. They've had some tough games this year, which I think it will prepare them for this. It's resistance training, if you will.
Liberty ranked in the AP poll, not ranked in the college football playoff poll. I think they're going to come in a little pissed off, play their best game, and they're going to keep it close, but I think Arkansas is going to come out with the win. Next up, we've got Washington, Oregon State.
First off, real quick,
Nick?
Sounded like you were about to pick Liberty there for a second, but this one, Washington, they were ranked at one point this year. They're at home. It's a a tough environment to play in, but Oregon State just looks different this year. Beavers have been down in recent years. I still remember the years where they were just the worst team in the Pac-12, and I think they're kind of they've been building up the last couple of years, and they're starting to kind of, I don't know about take that next step, but they're definitely in the right direction. So I think they're going to keep that going. I got Oregon State in this one. A little bit of an upset.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, not to follow Nick twice in a row here. I'm also going to go Oregon State. I really love the football that they've been playing lately. This year, they've come in, they've played tough on offense, they've played tough on defense. They were mentioned as the team in the beginning of the year to watch out for, to kind of play the chaotic role, the Joker role in the Pac-12, and possibly upset teams like Oregon and USC and UCLA. Washington's a great team, but that's when Michael Penix plays great, and Michael Penix doesn't play great every game. I think that he's going to be up against it, and I don't think he's going to perform like he did in the beginning of the year. So I will also be taking Oregon State, and I'll take the Oregon State to win outright.
All right. Go Beavers, Oregon State. Next up, we got Louisville, JMU, 7.5-point favorite for the Cards after a big win against Wake Forest last week. Nick, who you got?
Really quick, Joe, before I make this pick, don't be afraid to go with me. I mean, I am winning this competition right now, so you're obviously picking right. So, yeah. So with this one, like David mentioned, Louisville coming off that big win against Wake, I did not expect that from them at all. I'm going to be honest. I thought Wake was going to bury them, but Louisville came to play, and they're still averaging over 400 yards of offense a game, but James Madison is averaging almost 500. and they're giving up less than 300 yards a game on defense. So I mean, it's one of those games where I mean, obviously Louisville's favored by a touchdown and they're at home. I could see them winning, but this college football is crazy, and there are matchups every week that you just don't understand. I don't understand it, but in my head, my head's telling me the Dukes win this game, so I'm going James Madison. Uh-oh.
We lost Joe.
Scared him.
We scared him. Hold on, let's see if we can figure that out real quick. Resume. All right, we are back. Joe dropped off for a second. He got a little bit scared by Nick picking JMU, but we're gonna keep rolling with it. Joe, Louisville, JMU, who you got?
I'm gonna take Louisville, coming off a giant win. JMU is a really great team, and that's nothing to shake your head at. It's really hard to come from where they have been into a D1, FBS team. But I'll take Louisville on this one. I think they're going to finish the year out strong. They have a really good outlook on next year with a great recruiting class. I think they're going to start to get a handle on this season, but towards the end of the year, I'll take Louisville to cover.
As Corso would say, great pick, Joe. Great pick, Joe. I'm picking Louisville to win, and I think they're going to cover at home. Malik Cunningham. I think that's going to be too much for JMU this week, so I'm going with the Cards. Syracuse Pitt, 3.5 point favorite for the Panthers at home. Nick, who you got?
We said it last week that we thought Clemson may have broken Syracuse, but they just looked like a completely different team against Notre Dame. I think Clemson broke them. I think that they hyped it up so much, and I think that they're going to start. I mean, I hope they don't, because it would be bad for us, but I think they're going to start spiraling. So I think Pitt wins this game. Their rushing attack is one of the best in the conference, and Syracuse struggles against the run. So I think that they'll feed Izzy, and I think Pitt wins.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Syracuse. Quite frankly, I think Syracuse, well, they're a good team. I don't think that they were a top 10 team. And I think Clemson really showed that. So did Notre Dame. I just think Pitt's really going to show up in this one. I just think Syracuse is out of it. They don't know how to rebound, and I know they're a basketball school, so I guess that's an ironic thing to say. But I'm going to go with Pitt to cover and win here. Syracuse just looks down and out, and if they haven't gotten back on track in the past 2 weeks, I don't know if they're going to get back on track against Pitt.
I like it.
Most of this pick is motivated behind a desire for next week to be purple jerseys, orange breeches for Clemson. And part of it is too, I called last week. I thought that Notre Dame was going to get Syracuse because I thought that Syracuse was going to let Clemson beat them twice. I think that they weren't focused. Now they've dropped 2. They've heard the doubters. I think that Dino and that team's gonna
Schrader
get their head
again?
on straight and get their head on straight, or what?
Is Schrader playing again, or is it still the backup? Because I know he got hurt last week against Notre Dame.
I didn't even
I
see
haven't
what he
paid
got
attention
hurt.
to it. I'm not looking at that at all. I'm going with Sean Tucker, man.
Sean Tucker,
that man.
hashtag pleased.
Hashtag pleased, and he's going to be pleased after this game. Give me the Cuse. Give me the Cuse in Pitt. Next up, we've got Wake Forest, NC State. Nick, you going to let me know if my graphics right or wrong? Let me know.
Well, first, I do want to let you know that no matter what happens in the Pitt-Syracuse game, it probably will be purple on orange next week, because even if Clemson doesn't win, or if Syracuse finishes with 1 loss, Clemson would own the tiebreaker. So they just have to win the next ACC game to clinch. So it should be orange britches. In this game, like David said, he knows what I originally went with, but I told him recently, if NC State looked really good with their new quarterback, and they're at home, and Wake looked horrible. And it feels like NC State might have found an answer. Wake is reeling, so I wouldn't be surprised if NC State wins this game. But my original pick, and I'll stick with it right now, is Wake. I'll go with Wake, but I'm nervous.
That's a nervous pick for Joe. Who you think?
Yeah, Wake looked awful last week, and they've been a great team the past 2 years. But NC State this year was supposed to be at the top of that conference in the ACC, as you guys know. And 2 weeks ago they didn't look that great because Devin Leary, the New Jersey kid, was out. But last week they were kind of forced to, when they were down, to figure out how to throw with their backup, which I don't think they knew whether he could or could not, and if he could hold that on his back, that weight on his back. But he showed at the end of the game that he could, and they kind of were forced to figure it out. Their hand was forced to throw the ball. So I think that, like Nick said, Wake is reeling. I think NC State is on the upswing. And I think NC State figured out this past week that they don't just have to run the ball, they can also throw it too. So I think their offense is going to be wide open this week, and I think they're probably going to cover and beat Wake.
He's going with the Wolfpack.
Or not? Yeah.
I still think Wake Forest is probably the second best team in the ACC. Maybe third with how UNC's playing. I think Sam Hartman is the best quarterback in the ACC. Drake May's having a great season, but I think when it comes to just body of work, I mean, Sam's a senior who's put in all of that work and time, and he's delivered. I think that they're going to get back on track, and they're going to come out and put some points up. And I just don't know if NC State's got the offense with their third string quarterback. Even though he played well last week, they still struggled for a good portion of that game, figuring out what their identity was. So I'm going with Wake Forest here. All right, next up, sticking with the ACC, Miami and Florida State, what people thought were going to be the conference foes in the championship game year in, year out, has not happened yet. So they're both teams trying to get back on track. Florida State getting a big win last week. Miami getting a win, although I don't know if you can call that a win last week in 4 overtimes without scoring a touchdown. Florida State's a 7.5-point favorite in Coral Gables. Nick, who you got?
Saying in Coral Gables has no impact because no one ever goes to games there. So give me Florida State. I think Miami sucks, gonna be honest, and I think Florida State has played very well all year. Their 3 losses are all to conference teams, but I think it was all like 1-score games. So I think the Noles win this one pretty easily. I don't think Miami's any good. So yeah, Florida State.
Yeah, you could give me this spread at probably 17.5, and I'd still take Florida State. Listen, Miami's really, really bad this year. And I don't think it's even their coaches from Oregon's fault. I really don't. I think it comes with that offensive coordinator that they brought in. He doesn't know how to use the quarterback that they have in Tyler Van Dyke, who was projected to be a top 10 pick in either this year or next year's draft, however old he is. Florida State by a million in this.
Yep, go Noles. I think they cover.
Oh yeah.
Texas, Kansas State looking really good as of late. Texas is coming in as a 2.5 favorite on the road. Nick, who you got?
I think this line is a little based on just Texas's name and image. Because if you look at the body of work throughout the year, Kansas State has looked very, very good in most of their games. They were beating TCU by 18 at one point. And I think their other loss was just to Tulane, who's also becoming like the top group of 5 team. So I think Kansas State's going to see that line and be disrespected. And I think that they're going to come out and they're going to kind of take it to Texas. Quinn Ewers coming off his probably worst game as a Longhorn. It'll be interesting to see how they do on the road. I can't see Kansas State not winning this game. So I got the Wildcats.
I want Texas to be back so bad, like so bad. But listen,
never back.
Kansas State has been a show to watch this year. Adrian Martinez has played fantastic. Even when he's been hurt, backups have stepped up. Deuce Vaughn has showed up, putting in 30 carries a game for, north of 100 yards. I think that this line is backwards. I honestly think it should be Kansas State -2.5. So I'll take Kansas State to win and cover here.
Oh yeah, Kansas State all day. I think that I think we're all in agreement here. This line seems messed up. I'm putting my money on Kansas State this week.
And like to add to that, and real quick, just to add to that matchup, I think it's such an intriguing matchup when it comes down to it, because Sark has had such a great year, and I think Texas will be back. I think they are building. We'll talk about later in the podcast. I think Texas is just one of those teams where they got to go through their growing pains this year, and in the next 2-3 years, I think they're going to be in that college football ranking top 5 probably. So
Hot take
Yeah,
there.
And I could see that too. I do think Texas is building. I think though within the next couple of years they'll be a legit contender, especially when they got Quinn Ewers for another year. I think they got. Well, I know they got Arch Manning coming in. I'm not as high on Arch Manning as a lot of people are, but I mean he's 5 stars for a reason. So I think that give Sark a little more time. I think that he will kind of bring them back to national relevance. So I think this year was a little too early, but next year I think we're going to see Texas in the top 10.
I agree. They're taking baby steps right now, but he's building something. Like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. He's building something not to last for this year, not to last for next year. He's building something to last for the next decade and a half. So I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. I just don't think they can pull it out, but we can move on to the next one.
The next one. They're starting to call it the 1v1 game. Number 1 in the AP versus number 1 in the playoff. It's Texas. It's Tennessee and Georgia. In Georgia, in Athens. Georgia, an 8.5-point favorite over the committee's number 1 team. Nick, how do we reconcile that? I think we both had Tennessee, the number 1 team in our rankings. What do you think about this line? What do you think about this game?
The last time Tennessee had a line like this was the Alabama game, and they were a 9-point dog at home, and they won the game outright. I think that Josh Heupel, however the hell he did it, he changed the culture on Rocky Top like that. Like it's night and day from when he took over to where it is now. Georgia's a really good team. I do think that I have a feeling there'll be 2 teams from the SEC in the playoff this year, and I think Georgia will be one of them. But I don't think they're going to have an SEC title. And I think that's because Tennessee's going to win this game. I think that they're going to go in there. They're going to solidify themselves as the number 1 team in the country, and I think that they're going to pull it out. I'm more confident in Tennessee's body of work than I am with Georgia's. Tennessee played a close game against Pitt, granted, but Georgia played a close game against Kent State at home, and then Missouri, who I'd say Pitt is way better than Missouri. So I just got more faith in Tennessee right now. I think they're on a people are saying that they're on like a 2019 LSU trajectory right now. And that team is crazy. So I got Tennessee winning this one.
Yeah, for me, Tennessee's been phenomenal. Their offense has been, unbelievable. And I think their defense isn't that far behind, but just because their offense has been so great, I think people haven't really taken note of their defense yet. But I think that might come. And I think that might come during this game, honestly. Josh Heupel is doing something very special in Rocky Top in Neyland. If this game was in Tennessee, give me Tennessee 10 times out of 10. Yeah, but it's in Georgia, and it's in Athens, Georgia, and we see the way that they play when they're in Georgia, not just in their stadium, but in Atlanta or anywhere across the state of Georgia, honestly. So, give me Georgia to win, but Tennessee to cover. I think Georgia has been there before. They've both of these teams have beaten Goliath now. So this is really going to come down to who's the bigger guy. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, this is not like Clemson or Notre Dame, like we'll talk about. Whoever loses this game is not out of the playoffs. In fact, it's contrary to that. I think both of these teams have a really great shot, even if one of them loses this week, to make the playoffs and be that 4th spot. So I don't think either of these teams are going anywhere, but Tennessee to cover, Georgia to win, just because Georgia's been there before. And Kirby Smart is now becoming the Alabama, in my opinion. Nick Saban's 6th, and I don't know if we're talking about the college football playoff rankings later. We could if you want, but I think Georgia is the new Alabama. So
is it you saying you're picking Georgia to win, but it'd be close? How you said?
yeah. Tennessee to definitely cover. 8.5 is a lot of points for that game, especially with that offense. It's gonna they might not be able to stop that Georgia offense, but I think that Hendon Hooker will have quite the fantasy line for college football, even though that's not a thing.
I wonder if Tennessee is going to try and take down their goalposts again if they win this game at home. That'd be kind of funny if they did.
Well, I never
they get the
thought.
idea from me. I don't want to get the bill, but I think Rocky Top's going to be playing after this game. I think Tennessee is going to come out with the win. I think that Tennessee and Ohio State are just two offenses that are hitting on all cylinders. Tennessee, you would have thought, might have had a letdown the week after Alabama, where they just didn't look as clean. They looked great against their cupcake team. And then the following week, maybe again, they're playing the best, one of the better defenses in the SEC with Kentucky. Looked like it would be a good matchup. Tennessee rolled over them too. I think that this is their next big step. And I think that if Tennessee does this, then I could very much get on board with that, thinking that they could go into the SEC championship game and beat Bama twice, which teams don't do. They've got that kind of offense with Hendon Hooker that I think that that's a real possibility.
Yeah, and that Alabama team this year, like I know I said, like I think that Georgia is the new dynasty. That Alabama team is not as squared away as Nick Saban's previous teams that we've been watching. I mean, you guys know as Clemson fans,
Oh yeah,
he's not gonna beat himself most years, but this year, just the penalties are off the charts. Will Anderson, who is supposed to be a Heisman contender and really lead the Heisman race this year, is just kind of nowhere to be found at certain points in the game. So, I think that they definitely could beat them twice if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
I
I
agree.
agree. I definitely don't think that Alabama's as invincible this year as they've been in the past, even with just how they've looked against Texas, against A&M. With that, our next game is Alabama LSU. Alabama going into Baton Rouge, 13.5-point favorites. Nick, who you got?
And I'm really happy that we just all agreed with that sentence that Alabama's not who they used to be, because I do have LSU. I want to say winning this game, but I also don't want to put too much faith
You gave me
in Brian.
LSU outright. You gave me LSU outright. You bottomed down on it when I asked you if you were sure about that.
Yeah, I know, but it's
So
Brian Kelly in a big game, so we'll see. Sorry, Joe.
You stole my take. I was gonna say the same exact thing, so we'll get into it when I make my pick.
I do think that LSU hasn't beaten Bama at home since 2010. People are calling the faux Death Valley Bryant Denny West. So I think that changes. I think Brian Kelly is going to try to change the narrative that he can't win the big one. He did it in 2020 when Notre Dame took down Clemson. I think that, like we just said, Alabama is not Alabama this year. And I think that 13.5 is disrespectful to LSU, honestly, as much as I don't agree that they're the number 10 team in the country. I don't think they're a 13-point dog at home. So give me LSU. I reserve the right to say that I just want them to cover, but it's a risky one. I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. Brian Kelly does not win big games. I have been tortured and I have been through the ringer with that theory. I've stuck up for him multiple times. I'm done sticking up for Brian Kelly in big games. I'm done sticking up for Brian Kelly against Alabama. I with that being said, I think Alabama wins, but I don't think they cover. It's in Death Valley, right? It's in the real Death Valley. No offense, boys. But
Can't
you
be
know
the
that
real Death Valley if you can't beat Alabama there.
that
If
place is
Alabama
going
owns you in your own stadium, how can you call that Death Valley? I'm
the
sorry, that's not how that works.
that place is going to be jam packed. Everyone and their mom is going to be there. They're all going to be pretty tipsy, if you know what I mean. And it's going to be a live crowd for sure. So that's why I think that they cover. If they were in Alabama, I don't even think they cover, but I'll take Alabama to win, LSU to cover in this one. I cannot wait to watch that game, and I really hope ESPN does their due diligence in showing us how rowdy that crowd is.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I think Alabama wins. I think that LSU covers. Um, I'm calling my shot. You doubled down on it when I asked you earlier this week. I have the receipts. I have the text messages to prove it.
I know.
So you're sticking with the LSU pick. I'm sorry. I gave you a chance earlier with the NC State one as well, and you didn't double down on it. There you go. You're stuck with what you told me. Alabama winning, not covering. With that, we've got just a couple more minutes left before Zoom's going to kick me off. So we are going to go ahead and talk about the matchup at 7:30 on NBC this week. Clemson, Notre Dame. Clemson, a 3.5-point favorite. Notre Dame, up and down season, some highs and some lows. They looked good in a heartbreaking loss to Ohio State. They follow that up with a loss to Marshall. Looked like they got themselves righted with a couple of wins, and then inexplicable loss to Stanford, and then came back last week and looked really good against Syracuse. So let's see what we think. We've got two Clemson guys and a Notre Dame guy. Who we got? Who we got?
Let's let the Notre Dame guy go first.
All right, let's do this. So I think that, like I said before, so Clemson came in at number 4 in the playoff rankings, right? So this is arguably, and not just this game, for every game here on out, this is a playoff series for Clemson. Their playoff is not going to be 2 games. It's going to be now until the end of the season. And I really, really don't want to pick Clemson this week. And I won't do it because I'm an Irish fan, even though I believe that they will win. But Notre Dame's quarterback has not been right the past few weeks. Drew Pine is not the answer. We missed Tyler Buckner. But I think that it's going to come down to 2 things for Notre Dame. It's going to come down to that run game and how physical they can be in the trenches on both sides of the football. And I think that if Notre Dame wants to win, they have to play their best defense possible. And they've started to get that on track. Marcus Freeman is a defensive-minded coach. They've started to kind of find their footing on that end of the ball. Marcus Freeman is starting to find his footing just in general as a leader and as a coach. I'll take Notre Dame to win and cover, even though my heart is telling me otherwise. And I just think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who wins the trenches on either side of the ball. And then if Notre Dame can play good defense and DJU turns the football over, that's the recipe for success for Marcus Freeman. I don't even know. Maybe you guys can tell me. Like that whole quarterback debacle in Clemson that makes me uneasy too. I mean, you guys have a 5-star right behind DJU, but it's like you tell the guy, "Oh, you're my quarterback. You're my quarterback. You're my quarterback," and then you put in another guy. So what is it? You know what I mean? Notre Dame to win, Notre Dame to cover, and it's going to come down to those 2 things for me.
I think that you're right. I think it is going to come down to the trenches. I do feel a little more comfortable with my Clemson pick, just knowing the athletes that Clemson has on their defensive line. Obviously, Notre Dame's known for their offensive line play. I just think that Clemson's D-line's on a different level, and I think they're starting to get healthy. They're starting to get confident.
They really are. Before David gives his take, they really are different this year, right? And like all of those defensive line on Clemson is 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has been finding its footing. It's really going to come down to the quarterbacks and the trenches. That's what's going to come down to. So I'm interested to see how Drew Pine plays. Maybe he does his McGregor walk out of the tunnel and he really shows out. Or maybe he's just the same Drew Pine that we've seen for the last 2 weeks and Notre Dame gets dominated. But if they're backs, if that's stable of backs, Tyree, what's the other guy's name?
Steve Stein.
Yeah, whatever that second guy's name is. Diggs. If they can go off and that Notre Dame offensive line can really take hold of you guys, I think Notre Dame comes out victorious. But it's gonna come down to that. It's not gonna come down to anything else. It's gonna come down to the trenches and how good the quarterbacks play.
Drew Pine can come out doing the gritty. I still think that he doesn't have it against Clemson's defense this week. I agree. It comes down to the trenches. It usually does when these two teams come together. I think Clemson's defensive line's finally getting healthy. I'm hearing reports that Xavier Thomas is finally looking like he's back to 100% or as close to as he's been all year. That's huge. I think that the secondary has started to get more confidence, and that's given Wes Goodwin a chance to kind of open up his play calling book to create some blitzes and pressure. That's helped the team to look a little bit more complete than they did since the Wake Forest game. So I think that Clemson's defense is going to be the key here. If they can stop that running game, which they've been doing all year long, I think that puts the Tigers in a good spot to win. DJ can't turn the ball over this week. Just can't do it. You gotta hold on to the ball and you gotta take care of it like he's been doing outside of the Syracuse game. And I think that if you do that, I think Clemson's got enough firepower to pull out the win. I think that they win by a touchdown. I think they need to win by more. I think they really need. I think we've all hit the nail on the head that this is Clemson's playoff from starting this week on. I don't think that if they have a loss on their record that they're in the playoff, which is I think fair.
That's the other
with
thing.
how things are looking. You've got a potential for 3 teams that are undefeated at the end of the season, and Power 5, and then another SEC team, whether it's Bama or Georgia. Probably looking at them with a 1-loss Clemson, I'd pick the SEC team to be in the playoff. But if Clemson keeps undefeated, I think they're in. That's all that matters. So that's all we've got for this week, guys. I am running out of time on the Zoom. I got to figure out how to get
one
more
quick
time
thing
from that. I'm blaming Joe for losing connection.
I'm going to say one quick thing with our minute that we have left. I completely agree with you. And that's one thing that we saw this week when the playoff rankings came out. And that's why I think Georgia was not 2 and they were 3, was simply because when they've played this year, they've had not slip ups, but places where the eye test didn't look as good. I think really, if Clemson really wants to make a statement, they really have to come out and they really have to dominate Notre Dame this week. I know Notre Dame's not top 25, but if they want to stay in that 4 spot next week and to come, they really have to win by more than a touchdown. They win by 2 touchdowns, that's fine. But if you win by 1 touchdown, the committee is going to look at that and they are going to hold that against you. So that's my last thought on it. I completely agree. Not only do they have to win, they really have to bounce them out of the building.
That's all the time we got. I appreciate you, Joe, for joining in and giving us your take. As always, guys, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.